Start by thanking GDF and especially Mr. Moses and Nisha who have made my journey possible to come here. This is my first international visit after, since the COVID period, and here I am exactly 3 years since my last visit in Delhi and in Patiala at Punjabi University. So let me start by pointing out one thing that I first noticed when I was coming out of the airport. I saw there's a Hyundai sort of sculpture, two hands holding. One is human hand and another one is an AI hand. So first I did not see the Hyundai sign. I thought that this was a GDF sort of welcoming us to participate in the this AI conference, and then I noticed, okay, the name is Hyundai. So that actually reflects that how AI is, we are paying attention to artificial intelligence, paying attention to these new changes, and although COVID has disrupted our life in a way that we have never envisaged, but at the same time, it has hastened the process. It has made us aware that there is another part. Think about a world where this pandemic is happening and there is no connectivity, no digital connectivity. So what would have happened? Our life, starting from education to all other economic activities, all would have been disrupted in a manner never seen before. So how technology has shaped our world, how technology has reminded us that it is here and we can use it, whether we are using it in a negative manner or in a positive manner, that of course at the hand of the user. As the chair today reminded us that always a technology, a new invention is called as a disruptor. So we need to understand, we need to pay attention, how do we do it. So first let me start with, and then again let me start with a couple of statistics as my previous speaker did. Bangladesh, she mentioned about the gender gap indexes. In fact, Bangladesh has been has been the top performer in South Asia for the last 7 consecutive years, and its current ranking is 56 globally among. Globally among 150 out of 156 countries. 56 or I think 65 if I'm not much mistaken. So here we can see that how Bangladesh, in all of the subsections, there are 4 categories where women's participation, women's empowerment are measured. Political empowerment, globally the rate of women's political participation is only 22%. In Bangladesh is 55%, and the closest country in South Asia in terms of women's political participation is Nepal, where they have achieved 24% of women's participation in politics. In terms of economic participation and opportunity, we can see in Bangladesh, I was very surprised to hear about India's rate of economic participation. In Bangladesh, it has been 36%. In 1970, right after Bangladesh's independence in 1971, the rate of women's economic participation was only 4%. Gradually, and I'll come to that, how and why, gradually it has reached to 36%, whereas South Asia's total average is 23.6% of women's participation in economic activities and opportunities. In terms of educational attainment and health and survival, Bangladesh is not doing that well. Despite that, in Bangladesh, we can see maternal mortality rate is only 173 out of per 100,000 women. Neonatal rate of death is 17 out of 100,000 women. Under 5 female child mortality rate is 27 out of 100,000 female children. Girl children. So here we can see that how Bangladesh's women are faring so much better, and how this has been possible, how education can play even a better role, especially as pandemic has created a new situation in Bangladesh, which we term as a feminization of joblessness, meaning after the pandemic, when the businesses opened, offices opened, the first heat of the job cut, it affected women because they thought there is this idea, as Madam Chair pointed out, that women's first women is a secondary wage earner. Women is a mother first. Women is a sister first. She has to be the primary caregiver in the family. So therefore, the first job cut affected women. So in Bangladesh, we can increasingly see there has been a feminization of joblessness, and women are the primary victim of losing their jobs than men. So here we can see that how where educationist can play a role. First of all, we need to see that what level of education we are talking about. Are we talking about primary level, or are we talking about secondary level or tertiary level? Coming from a tertiary level of being a tertiary level of educator, I experienced different kind of challenges than a primary level educationist teacher or a secondary level of teacher would encounter, and I'll also come to that. So first we need to look at what level of education we are talking about. With the pandemic, it has become very apparent to us we need, as has been spoken yesterday and today as well, we need to think about a hybrid mode of education. But then which area are we talking about? From Bangladesh's perspective, are we talking about an urban area? Are we talking about a rural area? Are we talking about areas which are closer to Dhaka, the capital city, or are we talking about further, areas which are, far from Dhaka, which are far from, regional districts, which are subdivisional districts or divisional districts. So these are some of the areas we need to look into, and here we can increasingly see that often the educationist himself or herself, they do not have access to education, access to a digital device. They do not know how to, educate, how to take a class using a digital device. So we need to pay attention to these particular areas, that train your teachers how to make them understand how to use this particular digital device. Not only that, as we can see that as we have just heard about the hierarchy of usage in terms of digital device in a house, when during the pandemic we started handing out digital devices to our both male and female students, we have seen that how one device is being used by so many members of the family. When we are taking classes, they don't, especially female students, they don't have a room for designated for themselves for 1.5 hours when the class is going on. So all of these challenges that they had to go through, students and also some teachers, how in a family, say for a family of 4, when both the mother is working, father is working, they need their laptops as well as their kids needs laptops. So how can a family, a sort of middle income family, can afford 4 laptops for different purposes, and it is connected to their job, connected to their education. So there's a lot of financial implication to this which we need to pay attention to. Then again, we are talking, we need to look into how digital divide works. Digital divide is not only about accessibility, but is also about what are the contents are being shared, how these contents can be made available, how can we control some of the dissemination of some of the, contents of which spread very easily through internet, how misinformation, disinformation and fake information can be encountered. We are talking from yesterday, but this is an area where we need to pay attention that how disinformation can affect social and communal harmony. We have seen in Bangladesh it happening quite often recently, and then we have been able to track down how these were spread and who are the culprits and how we can bring them to justice and how we can prevent this from happening further. Then we are looking at that why, how women's education is disrupted when they are being part of online education system. Pandemic had not only a gender impact, but also it also told us, it also showed the loopholes in hybrid mode of education. So here we come to the pedagogy of not only teaching but pedagogy of gender itself. So when we are talking about gender, what do we understand? Are we talking about only women? Are we talking about gender, meaning how social relationships are defined on the basis of biological identity of a man and a woman? So we need to broaden our horizon, and here I would go back to some of the issues that were brought yesterday, and also some of the issues that when I teach in my classroom, being at a tertiary level, when I talk with my students very openly, that what is the primary unit of education? We are talking about teachers as in a profession, but primary unit of education is a family. So in the family, how a mother is teaching their son and their daughter differently, that is the primary level of education where we are learning how to interact with each other. How do I differentiate between, a sort of female friend? How do we differentiate between a male friend? How do we teach our girl children do not go out after sundown? But for boy children, we do not teach them that no, take your sister and provide a sort of safety net, provide a safe society for herself. This is something we often miss. Then again, whatever the mother is teaching, the history, the narrative, the story, the national narrative, all of these, a child first is learning from the mother. We know this very famous saying, my mother knows it all. My mother knows it the best. So no matter whatever is there in the content out there, but a girl child or a boy child is first being educated at the home. So although it's a cliche, but we need to say it over and over again, we need an educated mother. Without an educated mother, a family cannot develop, and the family's contribution to the creation of a community. When we are talking about community, let me give you a few examples from Bangladesh. We encountered violent extremism, and 2016 was a rude awakening for us when the Holy Artisan incident took place. And some of them came from a very wealthy, well-off families who had photos with some of the very famous Hollywood actresses. They were, elites of the society, but how did they get brainwashed? This is a question we never got answers of. But what we have seen is that we have this typical understanding about the spread of violent extremism that maybe those who have less, exposure to globalization, they can be recruited easily. In fact, in today's world, how we can see that it is those educated and with digital access, with digital devices, they can be recruited better. So what we did in Bangladesh, we spread the community understanding and community teaching, which has helped us to counter violent extremism at the very nook and cranny and different nook and cranny of the country. So in the community level, when you teach or when you have a community leader taking charge of maintaining certain kind of order, if there is someone in the community who is going there for the first time, renting a house, who is he or she, where the family is coming from, what is their source of income, all of this is how we have been able to successfully so far, keeping our fingers crossed, so far we have been able to create a community awareness where women also played very important role, because women have access to other women in the way of sharing recipes, talking about your in-laws, talking about your parents, talking about your families, your children's education, and that is how women have helped in maintaining certain social order. Then second area which we are also gearing for achieving success is women, peace and security. This is one of the pillars of United Nations peacekeeping operations, where Bangladesh is once again top troops contributing country. I'm very proud to talk about my country standing here. So here Bangladesh initiated this idea of women, peace and security, which is a result of decades long women's activism, where they wanted to recognize the role of women at every level of peacekeeping, peacemaking, peace building, because peace is not only just the absence of violence, it's also how you engage the community. So as part of WPS, countries are supposed to prepare their own national action plan, where women's role in the society, women's outlook, women's level of participation, both economic and at the peacemaking level, should be outlined. There should be a national strategy. And here we have seen that when I participated in a conference in 2021 virtually, it was organized by US PACAF, Pacific Air Command, and in the global session I heard how it was being difficult for women working in Japan, women working in one of the South American countries, and women working in New Zealand, that whenever we are talking about allocating resources for women's empowerment, it is seen as a threat that money is taken away from men's work to unnecessary women's work. What do women know? What do women contribute? They know nothing. They just take care of their children, and that's their task. But what Bangladesh has done, MOFA means Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the lead agency under MOFA's leadership. There are other ministries, 13 to 14 ministries altogether. What we are doing is gender mainstreaming. That is, gender is not only about women, but gender is about allocating tasks to men and women and integrate them for a common future. This is something we are doing, and we have been so far very successful. And there are years to come. We have adopted our National Action Plan in 22nd December 2019, and it is going on. So there are a lot of areas in terms of climate resilience. Why Bangladesh is called as the disaster capital of the world? Because in Bangladesh we have learned to live with disaster. Although while I'm talking about this right now in northeastern district Sylhet, we are suffering a very unprecedented situation and flood, and that is being taken care of. However, despite we are in the middle of a crisis there, I can tell you for sure that how Bangladesh has learned, and Bangladesh has been teaching, because Bangladeshi scientists working with international scientists, we have been able to invent soil resistant crops, so that with the increasing salinity in the coastal areas, there are new types of crops who can withstand increasing salinity. So in so many areas we are working, and where female scientists are equal parts of those teams. So I can tell you for sure that in Bangladesh, in several areas, and especially in terms of informal employment, how low-income families through microcredit and through other sort of involvements, they are being part of informal economy, and this is something that we are extremely proud of. And last but not the least, I'll talk about RMG sector. I'm sure you may have a lot of questions about that, how RMG sector has changed the face of Bangladesh and increased women's participation. So in 2019, there was an interesting article published in South China Morning Post. It's good over made in China. This is time for made in Bangladesh. We are so proud of all of this attention Bangladesh is getting, but the challenge for us is how to make a work environment which can help women and which can gradually dispel this understanding that women are the primary caregiver just because biologically they can give birth to children. Because we can give birth doesn't mean that women have to take the primary caregiver. And one question I throw to my students, as a man said, one question for all the men here, that one question I throw to my students, first year students who are like 17, 18-year-old and who are very in how it's a taboo to talk about family and sex and other sort of issues in South Asian societies. I ask them that do women bring their kids from their parents' house, baper bari, parents' house, do they bring their kids, or is it a decision taken by both husband and wife? And then the 17, 18-year-old kind of children or adults, they're sort of smiling, hiding their face because they do not know how to answer. They know the answer, but they do not know how to answer this question. And then gradually a few of them tells, no, women do not bring children from their parents' house. So I tell them, so whose responsibility it is to take care of the child? So then they start thinking. So we have to make people think. This is what I, as an educationist, this is what in my own capacity, this is the best I can do, that I can ask them question, I can ask them, everyday practices, do not take them for granted. There is a famous saying by Carl Jung, a psychologist, that it is difficult to think, and that is why people like to assume. Assumption is easier. So do not assume that women are there as primary caregivers just because they can give birth. Just because they can give birth, they are not going to do all the work associated with it. And they can contribute in so many different capacities. Ma Durga had 10 hands, and that is how you sort of give people, make people this assumption that women can do everything. No, we also need our breaks, we also need our entertainments, we also need a life of our own. And last but not the least, I want to share, inspired by ma'am, that my personal experience, that when in early 30s, my best friend, my husband, he passed away in his sleep. He had a heart attack. So since then, it was early 30s. You know how South Asian societies work. So there has been countless marriage proposals. So you have to, as a woman, your first task, it doesn't matter, then I was an assistant professor, it doesn't matter you are an assistant professor, it doesn't matter if you go for your PhD, your primary task is to please a man. I said, no, that cannot be my primary task. So I have not, on principle, I did not marry second time. I mean, I'm not saying that I am against marriage. I'm not saying I'm against, men. That is an idea often people have, that a feminist is anti men. It is not that. It is about being friends. It is about having a partner in life. Whenever you get a good partner, by all means get married, and life becomes very much blissful, as I used to have. But because I haven't, I have seen that men needs a wife, and I rather respond to them, I need a wife, someone who will be staying at home, and after a long day when I come back home, give me a cup of tea and take care of me. Where is that wife of mine? So I haven't found a wife for myself yet, and we need to dispel the myth around the word wife. It is her task to provide everything. So education can be multifaceted, multi-layered. That's what I've been trying to tell, that it is not only the job of an educationist in the classroom, but it's something we can do in our own capacity, in our everyday life, whenever we are interacting with each other. And thank you very much once again, Mr. Moses and Nisha, for taking the trouble of getting my visa and getting me here. And thank you all.